Welcome to Spreading the Floor with your hosts, Jacob Cooperman and Nigel Petty Fernandez, your go-to podcast for basketball's forecast.
Spreading the Floor, episode 19. Next episode, we're going to actually have a really special little treat for you guys. We'll reveal what it is when the episode comes along. But as always, we are presented by ATB News, and we do always have a sponsor with us. That's Ball in the Six out of Toronto. You can go there, use code STFNBA for 20% off your basketball lifestyle clothing. They're based out of Toronto, Canada. We know the guys that run it. They're great. Okay, go pick up your great basketball lifestyle clothing. I know they got hats, they got masks, they got hoodies, whatever you might want. They got pants. I know they got a lot more stuff going on the way. We're going to be repping some stuff on the show when we actually get back into the booth. I'm in Maine right now. It's mainly a lot of trees, a lot of lakes, and that's pretty much it. The Opera House here is literally a house, if that makes any sense. I tried to get food last night. I mean, it was like 8 p.m. and everything was closed, so really sleepy town, but it's a nice change of scenery. Nonetheless, we needed to get the pod done. Okay.
Right.
Because we love the pod and every week on Monday is our designated pod time. So Nigel, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm sitting here in my office. I am not in Maine. I'm still at school. Just been grinding out some work. I'm happy to be here on Zoom. If we couldn't do it in person, I'm glad that we're doing it on Zoom. So ready to talk about some basketball, man.
Yeah, no doubt. What do we want to get into first? We can talk about, because I don't know if you saw Finals Game 3. I watched a great bit of it. We could talk about Doc Rivers to the 76ers. We could talk about Marc Gasol to Barcelona. A lot of moves, potential infighting within the Sacramento Kings organization. What do you want to get into first?
Let's talk about Sacramento first. Just get that out of the way.
Okay. All right. Well, for anyone that's uninitiated, Buddy Hield is not returning head coach Luke Walton's calls at the moment. And there is been a bit of buzz that he might be looking to get traded. Obviously, Buddy Hield, great three-point shooter, a great asset to have on a Sacramento team that's not terrible. There, again, seems like kind of like the situation with a lot of teams in the NBA now. They're a young team, and they still have a lot of room to grow. Luke Walton in his own right is a great head coach. I don't think this spells doom and gloom for the Sacramento Kings, but to me, this is kind of a situation or an issue that they need to step on now. Like they can't let this simmer, especially not when you have your, I'd say, go-to guy on the team in Buddy Hield beefing with the head coach. That's never a good thing. Obviously, I mean, I don't need to tell you that. I feel like all NBA fans know that.
Right. I mean, Buddy Hield is kind of the man on that team. There's not really much else they have. He's probably their best asset, and he does come in year out. He does put up some decent numbers. He is definitely someone that they want to hold on to and perhaps build upon. So by that happening, a lot of people are worried. The reason it's such a big deal is because a lot of people are worried that this organization that's already not in a very good place could fall even further. And that might show that the future of this organization might just be trade and try to rebuild. So,
well, yeah. Yeah, I think in the same way that they're in a really, I mean, they're not in the best situation right now. Obviously, they're not really doing anything in the NBA. They're more of a basement / kind of lottery team. In the same way that they're not in a good spot, I think if you want to look at it as in like the glass being half full, they're in a spot that they have so much potential growth. And like you said, Buddy Hield is a great asset, not only as a player, but a player that you can use to build around, you know what I mean? And if you're the Sacramento Kings, you're a young team, you're not spending that much money. So you have, not only is Buddy Hield a great asset on the court, I guess he's a great asset when you have a lot of money to play with. And that's exactly what the Sacramento Kings, I imagine, have. I don't know what the reasoning is. I know they've always had kind of their gripes going back and forth in the past. Buddy Hield, I remember last season, or maybe even earlier this season, was kind of going, back and forth with Luke Walton about not getting the shots that he wanted, kind of similar to the Chicago head coach and Zach LaVine, if I'm remembering correctly, not getting the shots that he wanted, not getting played. I mean, even just having fights on at half court on the, you know what I'm saying, out of bounds line, like little stuff like that. So I know this has been brewing up for a while. I don't know exactly why he's not returning Luke Walton's calls. But I mean, like I said, either way, it's not only is it not a good thing internally for the organization, it's not a good look for the organization, looking from the outside in, and it's not a good look certainly for Buddy Hield. Because if a lot of other teams, I feel like, see Buddy Hield doing this, if I'm the GM of like the Pelicans or something, a team that can always be looking to add another superstar, like we talked about, maybe even let's just say the Bucks. Not saying that he potentially goes there, but I'm saying if I'm the GM of the Bucks, right, and I'm looking and I see a promising guy in Buddy Hield, great 3-point shooter, great player overall, I'm gonna also look at this and say, well, hey, if I add him onto our roster, is he going to be doing the same thing? Is he not going to be returning my calls? That's going to be a major key to me, at least.
Yeah. Well, you also gotta remember that, if I think the reason Buddy Hield's doing that is because he wants to probably play in a different scenario. He's probably not happy with the situation. So if I'm a GM that can maybe capitalize on that, maybe I could say, well, let's give Buddy Hield an environment. Let's make a deal, sit him down. Maybe if I'm the Lakers GM, maybe if I'm the Bucks GM, it's a team that we will give him the shots he needs. We will surround him with people that will elevate his game. Maybe I'm not even worried that he's not going to return my calls because I'm just confident enough in that fact that I'm putting him in a good situation. So that could put him in a tough spot, but at the same time, I think it's clear that he's just kind of sick of being on the Kings.
So you definitely put, I mean, if you were to put the blame more on Luke Walton as the coach, I would tend to agree with you, but you think it's more indicative of Luke Walton as a coach, because again, they had those spats on the out of bounds, they've had those spats at half court. I mean, it's never been pretty, but you would say that the lion's share of the blame should go on Luke Walton, and that, if I'm looking at, and it's an interesting point that you brought up, Nigel, something I didn't even think of. If you're another GM, say, hey, listen, I understand. Maybe I'd understand the reason why Buddy Hield isn't returning this man's calls, and it's because he's not running the team right. So, hey, let me bring him in. Let me do better. Let me treat him right, like he's an emerging star talent, and I can use something like, or I can use him to the best of his abilities.
Well, I mean, part of the blame definitely should go on Luke Walton. If we're blaming people, which, you can't always point the finger, but there's definitely some blame to go to Luke Walton, but mostly just the situation they're in. I mean, obviously Buddy Hield is a decent NBA player, wants to put up good points, probably could do better if he was playing with some better pieces that could, elevate his game, maybe capitalize on what he's good at. It's mostly just pointing the blame at the situation, like if you're in a bad situation, if you're on a bad team, like you just kind of don't want anything to do with that. So like, obviously he's probably upset with Walton, but I don't think that's 100% of it. I think that he just wants to be out of there. I think it's more of just the Sacramento Kings as a whole.
Right. More of a foregone conclusion at this point.
Like he's not doing that on the Lakers. He's going to return the calls on the Lakers. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I feel like that also, not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but because I feel like if you have a guy like LeBron there too, like I feel like I like what you said too. He doesn't have a lot of pieces around him. I mean, it's a young team, but it's not the most talented team in the world by any stretch of the imagination. If he gets a team like the Lakers, where there's even like a veteran presence, say like and I'm just saying, like throwing things out hypothetically, like a Jimmy Butler, that would be like, hey, listen, dude, pick up your fucking calls. Okay, you got the head coach calling you. What are you doing? Da 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 da. Whip him back into shape. This could be a different situation.
Yeah, well, someone needs to be there to motivate him, and obviously there's no motivation right now with him on that team. And like you said, I think you said it perfectly. I think he just needs someone. He needs a drive. He needs a reason to want to call back the head coach. Right now, obviously, there's nothing there in Sacramento, because even if you don't like the head coach, you still call him back. You're part of the organization. There's clearly nothing pushing him to want to be part of that organization right now if he's not even returning the calls. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it's a shame, man. And the more I think about it now, and the more that we talk about it, I do see an eventuality in which Buddy Hield joins up with another team. And you know what? Honestly, the Sacramento Kings, I mean, it would benefit them obviously to hold on to Buddy Hield, but to think about all the teams that could use a guy like Buddy Hield, is it really the worst thing in the world if he decides to go somewhere else and gives another team who is maybe closer to that championship precipice or even a playoff precipice a fair shot at making the playoffs?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Absolutely. And also, just I don't know how old he is, but get rid of Buddy Hield. He's a little bit older. Build around De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah.
You don't really need Buddy Hield. He probably feels like he's wasting away his career. He could do better somewhere else. And who could blame him for thinking that? So
Right.
whatever. If he goes. Build up through the draft, get a couple more high picks and everything. Try to surround De'Aaron Fox with the best talent you can. And let them grow together, and then work with what you have. Once De'Aaron Fox is in his 6th, 7th year, maybe they'll have something special, but they got to start working on it as soon as possible, or else that time might just keep stretching out. The longer you stay as a mediocre team, with Buddy Hield being there is going to make them a mediocre team. Then the worse off your future really is. That's just the nature of the NBA. It's a shame
Right.
that's how it is, but that's how it is. So, I don't disagree with just they should have got rid of him as soon as they drafted De'Aaron Fox, to be honest.
Interesting take. And I like what you said too. Even with a guy like Buddy Hield that shows a lot of promise and a lot of potential, and the blame definitely could go both ways, not only with the coaching situation, but with also with the Sacramento Kings underperforming, with Buddy Hield underperforming. Maybe it's just better for both parties to mutually just say, hey, this isn't the best for us.
Right.
Let's end this little experiment. Buddy Hield goes somewhere, maybe unlocks his full potential. You're right. He is getting up there. He becomes a great asset while he's getting older. And then the Sacramento Kings, unfortunately this year they did get the 12th pick. It's not terrible, but maybe they tank and they get into, they turn into more of a, you know what I'm saying? Into a top 4 or 5 draft pick kind of team. And that's right. You kind of build around De'Aaron Fox. And then after that, you become, I like what you said, in 5 or 6 years, you maybe even become a contender again in that conversation.
Yeah, well, I've just looked it up. He's 27. Okay. He's not, there's no reason for a 27-year-old to be on a team that's like starting from the bottom. You know what I'm saying? Honestly, he's not that much. He doesn't have a lot of experience. It's only his 3rd year in the NBA. What is he really doing there? And I feel like he probably feels the same thing as well. What am I doing? I'm just wasting away on this team. He gets a little bit of attention being on the team since he's probably the best one there. But, I'd rather be an average player on a really good team than being the best player on an awful team.
Be part of a system, maybe even like the Celtics, something like that.
Yeah, he'd fit in great in the Celtics. He's a great 3-point shooter. He'd fit in great in the Bucks. He'd fit perfectly into the Bucks system. He'd help that Lakers backcourt if he went over there. I can name dozens of teams where he could go. He'd fit perfectly on the Heat. Like I could keep going. I'm only naming the popular ones.
Right. No. But, I mean, the more you think about it, it's like, duh, layup. You know what I mean?
Right. What is he doing on Sacramento? That's what we're at. And I think that's probably why he feels the same way. Obviously he could go about it a little bit more maturely, responsibility. He could just be straight up with the organization. But I don't blame him for feeling this way. And I kind of agree with him.
Yeah. Yeah. And I should say also too, that while the blame does fall on both sides, Luke Walton in his own right is a great head coach. I just think, like you said, I mean, the entire, I guess, takeaway from this segment is Luke Walton and Buddy Hield don't mix.
Right.
And that experiment there, end of the road, move on. Both men move on to greener pastures. Maybe Buddy Hield isn't the guy on whatever team he goes to, but he fits into the system and he's a great asset. And he goes there for a good price, a price that makes both the man and the team happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Okay. Moving on. Speaking of controversy, Kyrie recently went on KD's podcast, The Etc., and had some ill-advised words. Now, a lot of people thought that he was firing shots at LeBron. I don't tend to think so. I think he just didn't really think through what he said. And if he did think through what he said, he's clearly smoking something, because he basically said he went on KD's podcast and before that also on Instagram, he had kind of said that, what was it? That he was, oh yeah, that's right. Yes. With him and KD on a team, Kyrie is very high right now on him and KD playing on the Nets, as he should be. Right. But originally on Instagram, he had said something along the lines of the fact that, KD and him were there, kind of would negate the fact that Jason Kidd had been hired as head coach. Jason Kidd, I always get them mixed up.
Yeah, Steve Nash,
excuse me. I always get those two mixed up for some weird reason. Steve Nash as the head coach for the Brooklyn Nets. They essentially said that because those two were there, KD and Kyrie, that they wouldn't have any true head coach. Then Kyrie goes on KD's podcast and kind of says that down the stretch of his career, even, I assume he's referencing when he was on Cleveland, he never felt as though there was another gentleman on his team that had the potential to make the late game shots that he did. And that this, him being on the Nets was the first time he felt another man on the team could make the same shots as he did. Now, everyone rightfully was kind of like, hey, man, you played with LeBron. LeBron is widely considered to be a very clutch shooter. We've seen clips of LeBron shoot clutch shots. I call to mind that 360 or that 180 turnaround jumper in John Wall's face, in Washington, or just, an entire library of clutch shots for LeBron. And, I'm sitting there looking at it, and the only thing I can think of is that, like I said, Kyrie didn't really know or think about what he was saying. It happens on a podcast. Podcasts are kind of like that in nature. Maybe I in this situation, I know we don't usually give Kyrie the benefit of the doubt that much on this podcast, but I was kind of predisposed when I first heard it to give him the benefit of the doubt and to think that maybe he didn't understand what he was saying. If he did, could that be considered a diss at LeBron? Maybe. I don't even know if that would be a major league diss at LeBron. I think everyone's kind of blowing it out of the water, but I guess I could get your take on that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I kind of disagree with what you had to say. I think there's no way you forgot that you played with the best person in the world.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that he was so sick. The reason he left the Cavs in the first place, if you remember, is he was just so sick of being LeBron's Robin.
Secondary,
he was so sick of being Pippen, to the point where even reporters were asking him if he felt like LeBron had that like fatherly nature between the two of them. Like LeBron raised him. He took great offense to that when they used to like kind of say that kind of stuff. So ever since then he's always been very like petty with like he always, because he was on the Cavs since day one.
Yeah.
Career. LeBron wasn't there, so he always felt like he was the man, and then LeBron came back and stole all his thunder. So I think he does have some something against LeBron like inside him that kind of irks his soul, you know what I'm saying? Because if you remember that 2016 championship, that was Kyrie who made that shot to win the game.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's what I was gonna pull to mind. Yeah.
So and I think Kyrie does take ballsier shots than LeBron does. Yeah. Even though LeBron has made a lot of clutch time shots, I think Kyrie knows, like, and KD takes some ballsier shots too. I mean, you could look back at the 2017 and 2018 finals when KD just pulls up from the 3-point line, the same spot,
so
on that,
smooth
left side, and just it goes in every time. And that's a shot that LeBron's not going to take. With the game on the line, LeBron's not going to take that. So I think he was referring to that. I think he was purposely trying to call out LeBron, and also look at Kyrie's other teams, the Celtics. Who did he have there that was going to take that shot? Jason Tatum probably.
Yeah, I was going to say Jason Tatum was. I mean, Jason Tatum now I would have said yes to, but Jason Tatum back then, no.
Yeah, exactly. Now I think where the problem is with that is where you can take shots, whatever, you can say whatever you want, but he hasn't performed well enough
to make those comments
to be talking about that. I know he's on his high horse with KD on the Nets. The KD came out and said the Knicks aren't the cool thing in New York anymore. It's the Nets now. Like they feel really good about what they are, and they should, like, good for them. But like, wow, they are just really like their egos are so inflated right now. It's kind of ridiculous that he would call out LeBron James on a KD podcast. Not call him out by name, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of ridiculous.
He wouldn't dare call out LeBron by name, dude. I know he wouldn't. LeBron would come in there. Not. Nah, he wouldn't do that. But
no, he would. But still, like how high? Like you said, how high up is he right now? Where he literally thinks that he's guaranteed an NBA championship. I don't even see one.
I just genuinely think Kyrie, and to your point, right? Like, he is feeling himself so hard right now that he probably skipped over the entire. I feel like he just wasn't taken into account. Because, like you said, there's no there's no way that you could forget playing with the king, with a guy like LeBron. Perhaps he was just thinking about, to his early Cavs days, to his early Celtics days. I mean, if you really think about it, Kyrie has been that guy on the team when he hasn't played with LeBron, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like,
Even when he was playing with LeBron, though, he was taking and making those shots.
I just think that the thing with people is that when they are feeling themselves, like you said, and we know that I just see it in the way Kyrie does Instagram lives. The man is in love with himself.
You can see the smirk.
You could see, oh my God, when he was talking about, when he was going on like in his Instagram story. Hey guys, so let's have an open forum tonight. I want all of the brightest minds in my community to come and share their ideas with me. It's not about going brother against brother. It's about the game. It's like, how much do you think that you are really affecting this NBA community, Kyrie? You know, and you could.
He's played a total of like what 40 games in the last 3 years,
and he's been extremely injury prone. I'm just saying that I think that Kyrie has such a big grandiose view of himself that part of his mental blocks out when he played with LeBron. I do think that's the case. You see that with some people that have this grandiose vision of themselves, and now that he's playing with KD, I think that part of the reason why and people feel like he called out LeBron and he kind of omitted LeBron from that statement is not because he was trying to intentionally make a shot at LeBron. I think that he could even be sort of, what's the word? Intimidated by KD. He's sitting there with a guy like KD that he knows is objectively the better basketball player. And I'm going to say that now. I don't think that that's that much of a hot take, to be honest with you. I think that KD is objectively the better basketball player. I think Kyrie knows this. I think Kyrie knows KD's had more accolades. He's had a better track record overall.
KD's an MVP. KD's in, finals MVP as well.
I think that also, and to your point, right? Like, as we just said, Kyrie is a very, very prideful person. He prides himself on his basketball, on his self-perceived notion of intelligence. That going to a team where he's not the guy on that team, maybe that's causing Kyrie to implode. I mean, when he first got to the Nets, there were all of those outbursts that he had towards the media that kind of scared the organization a little bit. Now, this might be a wild take or it might be a conspiracy theory, and I don't want to reach too much here, but perhaps we're seeing Kyrie kind of take a step back and say, hey, I'm not the guy on this team anymore. I'm not even, you know what I mean? Like when he was with, when he was with LeBron, you said, you said it greatly. He was also making tough shots. Does he get the ball as much when KD is in the game? No. If I'm the head coach, if I'm Steve Nash, I want KD pulling up. I don't want Kyrie pulling up.
Right, absolutely.
If Kyrie's open, have him pull up, but I'm giving the ball to KD late game situations. I think that Kyrie knows this. I think that might be the reason. I think that he is omitting. I think he is trying to almost stack, like when you go in for for an interview and you have to hand him the resume. Yeah. He's trying to highlight the parts of his career that he wants people to know about.
Yeah.
So I think in his mind, whether it be intentional or unintentionally, I think he omitted the part with LeBron when he played with LeBron.
Yeah.
Especially because you think about it, like LeBron, you said LeBron viewed him as a younger, or the media viewed him as a younger son to LeBron. That would infuriate me if I was Kyrie.
Well, and my whole especially Kyrie's personality.
Yeah.
Probably gets him.
That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I mean, that might be a conspiracy theory. That might be a far-fetched thing, but that could be. I'm just presenting another. I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, presenting another side of things.
No, I think ever since, I think when he was a lot younger, he was a lot humbler. Obviously, that's kind of how it goes. And his highlights are just so pretty and everything. And he started stacking up the accolades. He won that championship and everything. He put up some serious numbers on the board. He set some NBA records. He's known as the greatest ball handler to ever play, if not the greatest, in top 3 easily. So I think those things just filled up his head and everything. And I think that he forgets that he has something to prove, like he went to the Boston Celtics, total disaster.
Yeah.
his last couple years I mean, like that last year on the Cavs, like it shows that as soon as like there was a real challenge stacked up against him that he like didn't have much faith that he could overcome, he was the first one out of there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's the only reason why LeBron left. If we're being realistic, if Kyrie would have stayed, LeBron probably would have stayed. You know, but he didn't. Kyrie left the year before LeBron left. I think Kyrie just he just forgets that your reputation is made up by your actions or your accomplishments, not by what you think of yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So
that's what I'm saying.
He probably thinks he's already done enough to be held to that level, which is just not true. I think of young Kyrie as great, and I think of older Kyrie as
average,
stupid.
I'll say it.
To be honest, average, if even average. Like he went so below expectations, and obviously you can't help injuries, but it's like you shouldn't be talking like that when you know what I'm saying.
I was going to say, yeah, it's not more because of his basketball skills. If you're talking his basketball skills, he's obviously an elite player. I just say average because he's been injury prone. Like you said, he's only played a handful of games this season, and he's done more talking than producing.
Right.
That's absolutely what makes him, to me, average. You
right.
Can't.
He left the Cavs to be a leader.
Couldn't do it. No, you're good. I cut you off once already. So
no, you're good. couldn't lead the Celtics. Couldn't take them past. What would they make it to? The first or the second round?
I think those Celtics that year, he was out though. He was injured, and they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Right. But when he was there, I think they made it to the second round.
Couldn't make it
further. He's just been proven like he just has failed in a couple points more recently in his career, and I think that in 2019, 2020 he played 20 games. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
I'm checking here to see about his playoffs record. He was with the Celtics. Okay. In 2018, he made it to the Eastern Conference first round. I believe that is, yes. First round. Okay. Then, in 2018, he made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. In 2019, he made it to the Eastern Conference semis. But I think for that Eastern Conference Finals series where they lost in 7, he was injured. The next year, I'm not quite sure if he was injured or not. I'd have to look back, but they made it into the Eastern Conference semifinals against the Milwaukee Bucks, excuse me.
Yeah, I remember his last year in Boston, I think. I don't remember if he was there or not. Yeah, he might have been injured. But I know that there was one year where he was healthy during the playoffs and he just couldn't do it.
Yeah, 2019 playoffs. That was when they made it to the semis.
Yeah, he wasn't putting up great numbers when he was there. He tried to have the offense run through him, or as opposed to when he wasn't there, when he was injured, the younger guys kind of got kind of had more of a pass first mentality, and they had greater success because of that.
Yeah.
And you could argue the competition that they were playing was maybe more difficult, like they didn't have to face up against the Bucks in the second round, which is hard to do. But it just goes. I mean, it's hard to ignore the fact that they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals when Kyrie wasn't there.
Well, also they had to go up against the defending champions Toronto Raptors too. I mean, I feel like a lot of like the Raptors stock has depreciated because of these playoffs, but they're still a great team. They're still the defending champions. Like let's not put dirt on the Toronto Raptors name and pretend like they're not an elite team that almost made it to the, you know what I'm saying? They made it into the playoffs a year after they made, which is relatively uncommon. You know what I mean? Save a few teams, but the Toronto Raptors are definitely an elite team, and they did a great job this year. And for the Celtics, again, like you said, a bunch of pass-first guys who work better in a system when, again, Kyrie, the guy who's talking out of his ass, isn't there. You're going to get that. You're going to get that reputation around you, and you can't be talking crazy on a podcast, And again, like I do, and I started off this segment giving, Kyrie a little bit of leeway. I'll end off the segment giving him a little leeway just because he was on a podcast, and I understand the nature of this game. You and me both have said some stupid things. Again, a little special segment on episode 20. It will highlight that. I think you guys will find very well, but I'll keep that under wraps for now. you can't always be on the straight and narrow when talking out in public. And I think
Right.
if you're talking about any celebrity figure or any person, doesn't matter if they're a basketball player, football player, celebrity, nobody's going to be clean 100% of the time. But more than not, Kyrie has said some pretty crazy shit, some
Yeah.
pretty like outlandish, kind of like, what are you talking about? Just out of touch type of stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. Kyrie, I guess if you're listening to this, which would be wild because you're definitely not listening to this. More playing, less talking. If you could stay injury, out of injury trouble.
Yeah, if you can play.
If you can play, if you don't blow out a knee, which God forbid that happens. We don't want that
Right.
happening to any NBA players. You want to talk about Marc Gasol to Barcelona going home to his native country of Spain?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, man.
Okay, I'll start this off. Personally, Marc Gasol always been a great player. Played for the Raptors last season. He was on that championship team. He's a great center. One of the better bigs in the game, I thought, last year, and I'm sure he'll be a great big in the Liga ACB this year. It's kind of, I looked up the rankings pre-podcast recording, and it seems like Barcelona and Real Madrid, just like in actual football, are the kind of the two top dogs in that league. So he's going to one of the contenders. They're second right now in the league, obviously only to Real Madrid. Having him on any team, honestly, to me is an automatic upgrade, and I think it's beneficial for both sides, obviously, because Marc Gasol gets to go home now. He gets to be, I'm sure this was not because of the money, because, the NBA was paying him good money. I'm sure they would pay him good money. Like I said, he's a great player, but I'm sure it had something to do with just being closer to home. I mean, coronavirus is going on. 2020 overall has just been crazy with the bubbling and the season not starting until purportedly, I think it was early next year or something like that. So a lot of layoff in between seasons. I think that Marc Gasol just said, hey, man, like, I can just go to Spain, get paid decent money. I played on the Spanish team or Spanish national team already. I don't really have anything to prove to anyone. I won a championship last year. I'm out. I'm going to go to Spain. I'm going to go play overseas. And, we also have to realize that the Liga ACB is no joke of its own. I mean, our man Luka Doncic, he played on Real Madrid for a while. So that was back when he was 17. He was young phenom. So they've produced a lot of great players, and Marc Gasol going is, I think, the best for both parties.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Marc Gasol he's older. He's 35 years old. He doesn't have really as great of a center as he is. His highlights are behind him.
Yeah.
I think he just wants to go back home, be around his family, be around an environment he knows.
Right off into the sunset.
Yeah, exactly. It's better to end it while you're ahead, than to watch yourself kind of deteriorate away.
Yeah.
And he is getting older. He's, you can see lately he hasn't been jumping as high, he hasn't been putting up as good of numbers, even though he was a big factor in that championship team. He could probably just go find more success playing in Spain. Yeah, I think it's a good move by him. Obviously he'll be able to contribute more overseas. It's a better environment for him. And he'll be able to have a longer career. He'll be able to extend his career playing against less difficult competition. And he can be a meaningful part of a team longer overseas than he would over here. And it's better that we see him walk away while he's ahead, than to watch him like really fade out and maybe get dropped by a team if he stayed too long. And say, like you said, this way, you said it best, we get to see him ride out in the sunset, playing basketball till he can't anymore.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, the Liga ACB, it's comp, but it's not the same comp as the NBA. Right. So he's going to be in a natural setting. He's going to be in his hometown. He's going to be playing against easier competition. I mean, it's great. And what better way to go out than winning an NBA championship?
Exactly.
I got the championship. I'm going to Spain. See you guys later. So, you know what I'm saying? See you later. Hurrah.
He goes home an NBA champion. There's nothing better I could have wished for him.
I hope he gets a standing O at the airport. Like, I hope everyone gets him off the plane. You know what I'm saying? If he's not already there, and they're chanting in Spanish.
They love him over there.
I know he's a very well reserved, regarded athlete over in Spain. So
I've never heard anything bad about him either.
Yeah, I've heard he's a really nice guy.
Super nice guy. Doesn't do much wrong. I think he has a family. He got married in 2015, I think, or 2013. So good for him. Good for him.
Yeah, I feel like funnily enough, most of the EuroLeague guys and the guys that come from Europe are usually the nicest guys in the NBA, like Boban.
Yeah,
I know Luka Doncic is really Doncic. I don't know why I can't pronounce his name today. Doncic is really nice. He's just very competitive. Obviously,
yeah,
Marc Gasol, Pau Gasol is at the moment taking care of Kobe's kids. So you'll love to see that. All that
yeah.
stuff. Like most of those guys are really, really, really good guys. So I'm happy for Marc Gasol and his move to the EuroLeague. So yeah, before we get Fredo on the show, do we want to talk real quick about, and then once Fredo gets on the show, we could talk with him about the finals in game 3. But did you want to talk about Doc Rivers to the 76ers? An interesting move that the Clippers let go of him, in my personal opinion. I think that I know that they put up everyone as tradable except Kawhi. So they're keeping Kawhi, but it
Right.
seems like they've kind of just gutted everyone else. And I understand that Steve Ballmer, too, the owner, was furious after they obviously choked the series, and he kind of just wanted to trade everyone. But I guess they mainly held on to Kawhi. Good move. I don't think Kawhi has the same year next year in terms of choking in the playoffs. I think this is just a weird anomaly. I'd say the same thing could be said about Paul George, though I don't know. It's kind of up in the air for me, but nonetheless, we're talking about Doc Rivers to the 76ers. Interesting move as well. It seems like there are a lot of openings with potential teams and potential head coaches. We had talked about Brett Brown leaving. We had talked about even, I believe it was the head coach of the Rockets wanting to be kind of slid in there, and they had a meeting. But now it's Doc Rivers in the head coach spot. So let me get your reaction to it first, Nigel, and then I'll get off on my little tangent.
Well, we kind of went over it when we first heard the news that he might be going to 76ers. I think it's a good fit for him. I think he'll have to definitely change up his style a little bit, but I generally think it's going to be a good change. I think both organizations needed to change. I think that he needed to get off the Clippers. He was just sitting there for too long. I think that it'll be interesting having him on the 76ers. I think that he'll bring new things to the table and also kind of, learn and grow as a coach as well. So I think it's overall a good move. Do I see anything super significant coming out of it? No, ball and everything. So he's already making big moves over there. I like it. I think it's gonna work out good for him, and I'm glad that he's not just sitting there growing roots on the Clippers. Only making it to the first round every year. You know what I'm saying? So overall, and plus, like, he needed to get fired for leaving Paul George in there for 38 minutes. So
Dude, that was a video we saw. Yeah, that was hilarious.
yeah,
That was
yeah.
hilarious.
So I think it's a good move. What do you think?
Listen, man, I like what you said, right? Doc Rivers in his own right. Maybe he had some blunders in this series. Overall, though, great coach. Okay. The 76ers also in the spot where they need to shake things up dramatically. I think it's a good move for both parties. I also tend to think that the Clippers kind of use Doc Rivers as a straw man, if you want my personal opinion. I don't think it comes down to Doc Rivers. I think it comes down to the players and the passion and energy that they played with. I think they were much better than they put out on the court, and they really underexceeded expectations. And it's a similar thing to the 76ers, right? Where Brett Brown, we saw him get fired. I had the same sentiments. I thought he was more of a straw man firing, and that was more caping for upper management. I don't think Steve Ballmer is by any means a bad owner, but just the fact that they had so many star players, and it could come down to Doc Rivers, but and certainly if you look back at the track record, I mean, he was there with the Lob City Clippers, and they kind of underperformed as well. Something's telling me that Doc Rivers isn't a bad coach, like
Yeah,
he can't be. I mean, he's had the experiences. I'll always say this, like, players can make coaches better and coaches can make players better. I'm pretty sure his record, and I was looking this up last night, his record on the regular season for the times that he's been with the Clippers have been in the majority, really good.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And he's a great playoff. I'm just saying it's more. It seems to me more like a straw man firing. They needed to point the finger at someone, and they kind of just nuked the entire organization. I mean, I would have kept, if I were the Clippers, Doc Rivers, but if listen, if I'm the 76ers, hey, you don't want him, we'll take him.
yeah, sure, yeah,
Again, what we talked about with Mike D'Antoni, it's not gonna be like you said. I think you said it wasn't really even gonna be a good scheme fit, because I don't think anyone's fits in well right now with the 76ers. I think they're kind of in this limbo where they're gonna need to make some major changes. Again, a great start would be Doc Rivers as head coach, but Yeah, I mean, with time, I think the Doc Rivers experiment could pan out well. I know he's strapped down to about 5 years. I'm not sure how much money, but he's there for a while. So the 76ers, man, if I'm the team now going forward with Doc Rivers, I'd say tank for a little bit.
Yeah.
Tank for a little bit. I know you're already paying Ben Simmons a lot of money. I know you're paying Joel Embiid a lot of money. I know you're paying Tobias Harris a lot of money. You tank, you see what other assets you can get, and try to reshape this team. I mean, the 76ers, man, what a bad situation. You know what I mean? What a
Yeah.
bad situation they're in. Trusting the process got them nowhere. You know?
Yeah. Well, they definitely, the 76ers, the state of what that they're in right now, they're definitely a major improvement to where they were, 7 years ago. So I think that, they're waiting and being patient. They definitely got somewhere, but they didn't get to where they were shooting for,
Right.
and they made a couple big mistakes along the way that panned out to kind of ruin it. So I think that they have proven that they have the ability to adapt and overcome as a team, but there's just a couple kinks they need to work through. And if they're going to fix those big mistakes that they made along the way, there needs to be some major changes. Maybe they play the waiting game, but then again, then you're
I think the problem with the waiting game too is that they've strapped so many guys down to monstrous contracts. Tobias Harris is the 10th highest paid athlete in the
it's
world.
ridiculous. Yeah, it's
And they also
ridiculous.
signed an aging Al Horford for a lot of money. So
Right.
it's tough. It's tough if you're the 76ers right now.
Yeah. So, and then you also risk, Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, either not wanting to be there or, getting too old or
Getting injured.
so. Yes, things like that, especially someone like Joel Embiid who's kind of injury prone.
Yeah.
You got to think to yourselves, you got to do something with these players. Maybe you take one of those highly paid players, maybe a younger team like the Kings or something could use a veteran presence or something that wouldn't mind taking on a monstrous contract like that in this time right now. Maybe you do that, but I think this was I agree with you. You said it perfectly. I think that they needed this change in the head coaching position, maybe just to give them a new outlook on where they can go from here.
Yeah, just marginal steps to kind of hopefully catapult them into a better future.
Right.
All right. So with our last kind of segment for the episode, we will invite, guys, it's a very special occasion. We have in the flesh FREDO the Don, a usual caller into the show. We have him over Zoom because I figured I was in Maine anyways. We could get the grand reveal of his face. We're going to chop it up with him about the finals game 3 and whatever else he might want to talk about. So let's admit him in here to the Zoom call. He'll be coming in a second. There he goes right there. Wait for him to kind of make his way in here. And this is FREDO the Don on the show. There he goes right there in the Sacred Heart shirt. All of us seeing each other for the first time in person. Well, obviously I've seen FREDO before, but Nigel and FREDO seeing each other for the first time in person. We have a very special guest of the show, as always, when he calls in, whether it be over Zoom or through the telephone line in the studio. What's going on, Frankie?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. We talked a lot on the show about mainly about kind of Doc Rivers going over to the 76ers. We've talked about Buddy Hield not returning Luke Walton's calls. We've talked about just a myriad of topics, but we wanted to pick your brain about Lakers Heat game 3. Obviously the Heat coming back in a big way, especially considering that two of their one could argue one of their best players and one of their solid role players, Goran Dragic and Bam Adebayo out. Bam Adebayo out with a shoulder / neck injury, and then Goran Dragic out with a foot injury. They made it happen. A lot of players that hadn't contributed a bunch in this series or even over the playoffs stepped up big for both teams. So I was kind of hoping to get your opinion, your take, maybe even some FREDO the Don hot takes.
Yeah, I was watching the game last night, and I was really surprised. Jimmy Butler became more of a dominant player.
Yeah.
He has been. He's always been a player, especially with the Heat, that he's been sharing the ball around. But I saw him lock into a different mindset, and he was like, I have to just take this game, and I have to just do this by myself. And so he just kind of put the team on his back, and you saw he got a 40-point triple-double. And
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it was not. But the thing that I always and we've discussed this, the Lakers backcourt is just horrendous.
It's abhorrent.
What's up?
I said it's terrible. It's really abhorrent.
Like you have the Heat who have Tyler Hero, Gordon Dragic is hurt, Duncan Robinson. But even with Andre Iguodala coming from the bench, the Lakers have Anthony Davis and LeBron James.
Right.
And Kyle Kuzma can bring like a third added factor. But with the Heat, if you have Jimmy Butler playing the way that he did last night, and you still have Tyler Hero, even though he didn't have a great game shooting, he still had 17 points. And you have a vet who's determined with Andre Iguodala, who's been there for 6 straight finals. And if Bam's coming back for Game 4, it's going to be interesting because the Lakers can't really match what the Heat have with their backcourt.
Also, the energy that the Heat bring in, I think this win is going to be big when we talk about the Heat stealing momentum and actually, getting things going and gaining momentum. Yes. And the fact, again, that, like you said, Bam Adebayo was out, Goran Dragic was out. Those are 2 key contributors to the team, and they still managed to get it done. Now, when you talk about Anthony Davis and LeBron James, those are 2 guys that you want producing for your team, and obviously they're mostly the ones that are the most dominant scorers and playmakers.
Yeah.
They didn't step up.
Yeah, they didn't. Anthony Davis, I think he had 15 points.
Yeah, had a very quiet night.
You can't do that if you're Anthony Davis, you're a top 5 player in NBA. And you can't be scoring 15 points in the NBA finals. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not giving you an excuse. And also you have Bam wasn't even playing, so why can't you should be scoring more than you did the other
right
game. Like it made no sense.
I think that also just comes down to the fact that Jimmy was locking LeBron up.
He was
late game, like he was not allowing LeBron to score at all, and he just took over. Like, I understand that Jimmy is the type of guy, and like at the end of game 2 when he was like, all right,
yeah,
that just shows that when Jimmy wants something and he wants to lock in, there's nobody that's going to be able to stop him.
And it also shows the brilliance of Eric Spoelstra.
Yeah.
He can switch up his lineup any way he wants to because he feels comfortable with the players to match up against the Lakers. And if you can lock AD down, it's going to be difficult for the Lakers to win. If AD continues to have 15-point games, 18-point games, they're going to continue to lose.
You see, like, I understand what you're saying with AD, but I still think LeBron, even in year 17, he has that X factor where he can take over.
He does.
I think that the reason that they didn't win that game last night, even if AD had a silent night with 15 points, I think it really came down to Jimmy just being so dominant. Obviously, other players on both teams contributing when they hadn't really been contributing earlier in the series or even in the playoffs. I think that Jimmy locking up LeBron won them that game. I think if Jimmy hadn't been as effective defensively as he was, I think this would have been a different. I think the Heat would have been down 3-0 at this point.
So with the thing with the Heat is Jimmy Butler doesn't have to have a 30-point, 40-point game for the Heat to win. The Lakers need at least LeBron or AD to have that type of game to be able to win. Because
I think if
Kyle Kuzma hasn't stepped up. If Kyle Kuzma steps up, then it's different. Because then you're talking about, well, then you have to factor in Kyle Kuzma. So now you're paying less attention on AD and LeBron. But it's just I'm still banking on the Lakers to win 4-2. Because I don't see LeBron. I don't see LeBron losing. And I think he knows if he lost this finals, it would harm his legacy. Because he should be winning against this team in the finals.
Yeah.
And so yeah, if you want to go, Nigel, I want to hear your point of view.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think you guys did put it in a very good way. I do think, however, I disagree. I don't think that the Heat would be able to get this done unless Jimmy had like a crazy breakout historical night that he did. As well as the Heat were playing, as well as Jimmy Butler was playing, he put great numbers up on the board. They were still only at arm's length for the
That's what I was
entirety
going
of
to
the
say.
game.
Yeah.
You know, they were only up by 5 or 6 points at any given point during the game. Anthony Davis obviously didn't have a great night. LeBron had a below average night. He didn't have a bad night, but he didn't play as well as he usually does.
Yeah.
And I think that fact, you know, and then Jimmy Butler also just
locking him up.
playing a historical performance. They were able to keep like about a 5-point lead over the Lakers for the majority of the game. But if you look at the Lakers during the regular season and during the playoffs, like, yeah, their backcourt isn't that great. You know, Kyle Kuzma hasn't really stepped up, but they don't really need that. You know what I'm saying?
I think it comes down to LeBron and AD's star potential, not to cut you off, Nige.
No, of course. You know, you said it perfectly. I think that the Lakers have yet to lose 2 games in a row in this playoff series. And I think that they don't need Kuzma to step up. They don't need a great backcourt. They need their star players to do well. And they didn't do horrible last night, but Jimmy Butler had a historical night. So if Jimmy Butler can do that another time, I can see the Heat pulling it off. But otherwise, I say that this is what I will stay with my prediction that the Lakers win in 5.
I think it came down really, like, I like what you said, Nige. He didn't have a great night, but he didn't have a terrible night. I think it came down to Jimmy locking LeBron up. I think if LeBron has that X factor, and it went back to what we were talking about on another podcast, you bring LeBron onto a team, that team could be widely considered to be a playoff team when he gets there. LeBron, if he activates that X factor, there's not really, I mean, outside of, and even some of the Golden State Warrior teams couldn't even handle him. There's not a team widely, I believe, on earth that if LeBron activates and he decides he wants to go crazy, I'm not sure there's a team that can keep up with that.
No.
So yeah, their backcourt is as we have both said, Fredo, pretty disgustingly bad. You know what I mean? Like Danny Green, I think what was my friend said?
The thing with Danny Green is he's always been a clutch performer.
He's the worst best shooter of all, or the best worst shooter of all time, or something like that. He just this year he's been.
I don't understand what is going on with him during this playoff tenure, because he would come out clutch in so many aspects during the playoffs when it was with the Spurs and now and then it was with the Raptors. I just haven't seen him form into that person that he was, at least during during these playoffs.
We talk about Kuzma. I mean, Kuzma, as you said, I mean, I think it's the consensus among all three of us, gentlemen, is that Kuzma really hasn't been stepping up these playoffs. If you want to talk about J.R. Smith, I mean, not to say that he's part of it, but I'm saying like they have a lot of players, even outside of the backcourt in some situations, that haven't been stepping up. And
back to everything with Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
About him needing a miraculous game like he did last night. I don't know if you guys didn't understand what I was saying, but what I was saying is that I do think Jimmy Butler needs to have a game like that in order for them to win. I do believe that. I was just saying that in previous games, like when they would play the Bucks and even against the Celtics, they didn't need him to do that. Right. And you guys were saying, yes, they were in arm's length, but that's without Bam. So with a Bam, and if you have Jimmy Butler, let's say he's not having a 40-point triple-double, but Jimmy Butler comes into the game with the mindset that he did last game of that he needs to be more ball dominant, then we're talking about a whole different series if there's a healthy Bam. Because it then it turns into a real series. Because Bam matches up well against AD. Bam hasn't been healthy
He's a great defensive player.
And,
yeah.
And Jimmy, and as we saw, Jimmy can match up against LeBron, but LeBron is LeBron. So I don't see LeBron getting locked up like he did last night, but it's going to be an interesting series. I'm still, and I'm still going with the Lakers 4-2. I think the Lakers will win tomorrow night. But then I think the Heat will win the following game after that.
I think it's important what you said, Fredo, right? I think that while this was a historic, and you talk about not only for the Heat organization, but for the entire NBA, a historic playoff performance by Jimmy Buckets. I mean, how could you not like the guy? I personally love this for him. I mean, me and Nigel have been very complimentary about him on the pod.
Yeah.
But you're right. You know, you're definitely right. Even with Bam back, you're gonna need a miracle to beat this Lakers team, man. That's been the narrative from the start. And I mean, me and Nigel, I think Nigel, your prediction was Lakers in 5, correct?
Correct.
I said Lakers in 6. Maybe I'll amend because I said Lakers in 6. I might be predisposed to amend my prediction to Lakers in 5. I think
you can't account for the fact that people are going to get injured.
Yeah,
but,
obviously.
Yeah, but I just think the Lakers have just been. Not only have they been playing well, but they're just so much better than the Heat.
Yeah.
Regardless of the backcourt or not, that it's like there's just nothing we can do about it.
It's just the star power.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Lakers bring, because you have 2 of the top 5 best players in the NBA on your team. Right. So you're an automatic contender with that. And so it's just a matter of surrounding them with the pieces. And they have. Dwight Howard has stepped up. I'll give them that. But I need to see more of Kuzma and I need to see more of Danny Green.
Yeah.
I think this is an anomaly for Danny Green, honestly. I don't think this is going to be indicative of his entire career. I mean, obviously he played like a champ on not to make a pun, but he played like a champ on the Raptors.
Yep.
He was always a great shooter for the San Antonio Spurs. Yeah, I always got jokes, Nige, whether they be intentional or not. He played obviously again great on this. I mean, his overall legacy as a player has been great. You know, I don't think this playoff series is anything indicative of his entire career.
No. But you would like for your players to just step up.
Oh yeah, 100%.
During the NBA
playoffs. Yeah, I mean, even if you have LeBron and AD, if you're not pulling your weight, and you got GM LeBron in there, and he might be looking at you a certain way while you cross half court, and you're like, oh, am I about to get traded next season? Who knows? We don't know. We don't know. But in a perfect world, even your role players should be stepping up. I think it's important in this season and especially this year's NBA. You need not only star players, I'd say 1 to 2, but you need your role players, your bench guys to be performing as well because it's such a competitive league.
Yep.
In the end,
the road to the finals is a very difficult road.
Yeah, Celtics finals next year. I'm calling it now, though.
Celtics in the finals.
Nigel, look at it. Oh my God. I mean that might be a little bit of a hot take. We'll know. Who knows?
We'll see. It all comes to whether how much rest they're going to be actually getting. Because Adam Silver has talked about that they would start as early as December.
Okay. So it wasn't. I said earlier in the show that it was going to be a long layoff in between seasons, so it's going to be a short layoff. Excuse me.
They said that would be the earliest by Christmas. But I think they're looking for January.
Oh, so that's not short at all, or it's not long at all.
Yeah. He was also talking about because he wants the fans, and so that might play an aspect in it. But I'm still hopeful with the Celtics, man. We'll
Celtics are a great team, but I guess with that we gotta head out of here because I gotta roll out and do something. But guys, thank you for joining me on the podcast today, especially you, Fredo. First in person. Did you just call for an ISO?
Yeah, ISO.
ISO. All right. Well, that has been the episode for today, guys. As always, you can follow. We'll have Fredo's tag for his Instagram. Go follow him. We're presented by ATB News, and we always have the sponsor. It has been Josh the Boss. Real quick before I say the sponsor, Josh the Boss on SoundCloud with the intro beat. And if you guys want some quality basketball lifestyle clothing out of Toronto, Canada. You can go to ballinthesix.com. That's shop.ballinthesix.com. You can use code SDFNBA in all caps for 20% off your next order. And tell them we sent you because we get a cut of the dough. We know the guys that run it. They're great. And yeah, go pick up some stuff. They have whatever you might need: hats, masks, hoodies, sweaters, techs, whatever you might need, pants, shorts, everything. Okay. So without further ado, guys, so that's been the episode. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.